We all rely on farmers and ranchers, but farming is riskier than other businesses out there. Crop insurance helps farmers manage their risk. With crop insurance, farmers put skin in the game by paying premiums and shouldering deductibles. That keeps taxpayers from having to pick up the whole bill every time disaster strikes. Today, about 90% of U.S. farmland is insured, providing $100 billion in protection to more than 130 different kinds of crops. It's a testament to the program's success.
Thank you for joining us here on Agri-Pulse.com, where we're joined today by Illinois Democrat Dick Durbin. Senator Durbin, we appreciate you taking a little bit of time to join us.
Good to be with you.
So for starters, I want to talk about a couple of issues very important to food and agriculture. First one being kind of the topic of the day on Capitol Hill, really for the last month, and that is the response to the coronavirus. And we've heard for a while that that's something the Senate plans to take up here within the next month. I'm wondering, based on conversations you're having with your colleagues and with both Democrat and Republican, how do you think food and agriculture concerns can be expected to factor into this next bill? I know there was a lot of money in the CARES Act and in the HEROES Act. A lot of folks wondering if that's going to do enough, not only for producers, but consumers as well. What are your thoughts on what we should expect to see in the next month here?
Well, I can tell you 6 weeks ago when the House of Representatives passed what was known as the HEROES Act, a $3 trillion effort to get the economy strong and move us forward. We haven't taken this issue up at all in the Senate. Senator McConnell, the Republican leader, has promised when we return in 2 weeks that we will, but we're going to be under the gun. There are 47 million Americans who are unemployed. The federal unemployment benefit of $600 a week, which was part of our bill back in March, expires at the end of this month. So when we return, we will literally have days before it expires. I'm already getting questions from people all over Illinois. What's going to happen? Are we going to lose this federal benefit check? $600 may sound generous to some, but if you have to make the mortgage payment or the rent payment and the utility payment and the food and everything that goes with it, it really kind of stretches it. And keep in mind, if your health insurance was with the place that you worked and you lost it when you lost your job and you want to keep it going, the average premium is $1,700 a month under the COBRA program that we call it. $1,700 a month. Now take the $600 a week and you realize in a hurry there isn't much left over for anything else. We've got work to do. And when it comes to rural America and agriculture, we've got to include them, not only to help to deal with some of the issues that they face. For example, livestock processing. I think that's getting better, improving over where it was a couple months ago, but we've got to keep our eye on that. Secondly, the distribution of surplus food has really become remarkable. I went over to Champaign recently and saw the distribution boxes that they gave, and they were picture perfect. Whoever put this program together is putting quality food in the hands of people who need it, and we've got to engage the farmers in that conversation. Help for state and local governments, essential for everyone in the Farm Belt. Cities, large and small, need a helping hand.
Senator Stabenow and some of her colleagues were on the floor last night speaking about the need for an increased SNAP benefit as part of these conversations as well. Obviously, I'm sure I'm not telling anyone a secret when I say that nutrition policy and spending on SNAP is kind of a hot button issue within farm policy. Where do you anticipate those conversations are going to go in terms of potentially increasing the SNAP benefit during this coronavirus crisis?
I hope they move in the right direction. Let's get to the bottom line here. If people are worried that some folks are receiving food stamps who shouldn't, I share that concern. But the vast majority of people receiving food stamps desperately need them to feed themselves and their children. Let's make sure that they have enough food. We can clean up the program as we go. We can clean it up in the future as we should. But let's not stop this benefit. And I completely agree with Senator Stabenow. Make sure that benefit reflects the reality of the cost of food today, so that families can continue to provide food for their children.
I want to pivot to kind of a longer running issue, really in the context of food and agriculture, but the broader economy as well. The issue of immigration. It's been something that, in the context of the coronavirus, a lot of folks were concerned about the possibility of getting workers into the country with consulate closures and things of that nature. But really, it's been a while. We saw the House act on something earlier this year in terms of specifically food and ag worker immigration. But in the broader context of immigration reform, and especially when bringing in things like DACA, H2A, all of the various layers of that issue, Is there a prospect on Capitol Hill to address immigration reform and specifically provide that workforce that food and agriculture is going to need to do some of these jobs?
In a word, no. And here's why. We have a broken immigration system. Everybody should know that by now. We see it demonstrated day after day after day. If we're going to do something about it, it has to be done on a bipartisan, comprehensive basis. Not just this solution here and that solution there, but something that fits together and makes sense for America. And I think we can do it. I've been part of an effort, a bipartisan effort a few years ago in the Senate that passed a bill, comprehensive bill. Had that bill been enacted by the House of Representatives, many of the problems today wouldn't be here. But we've got to get people to step up and say to this administration, which categorically, as opposed to immigration over and over again, that they've got to open their eyes to the reality of the need of immigrant workers. We desperately need them in our economy. Go to one of these meat or poultry processing plants. You pick the state, whether it's Illinois, Iowa, you pick it, and look at the people coming through the gate going to take on these tough, dirty, dangerous jobs. Many of them are immigrants. Sometimes a majority are immigrants. That's a fact of life. And when I have people come in from major farm organizations in Illinois, they tell me, listen, Senator, I've got an orchard in southern Illinois. Who is going to pick the fruit? We've got to have the workers that we've had every year, and we can't exclude them and make them feel uncomfortable about coming to work and helping us. And then someone who runs a dairy operation in northwestern Illinois says to me, Senator, if I don't get workers from other countries who come in and work on this dairy farm, it's gone. We're going to lose this operation that's been in our family for generations. That's the reality that is told to me by farmers and farm families behind closed doors. We need them to say this publicly, loudly, that immigration in the right way is important for our economy, starting with the ag economy.
So in your response, you mentioned some conversations that need to happen with this administration, but immigration reform has been attempted in previous administrations as well. Would a change, a November ballot box inspired change at the Oval Office, do you think that would be enough to move this conversation, or are there other factors in play here as well?
Well, it depends on a couple factors, whether we have a different president and whether or not we have a Senate that is willing to move forward. Senator McConnell will not take up this issue. He's just refused. He won't even consider it. The House sent him a bill over a year ago, and it just stays on his desk. But yes, it could move forward. Joe Biden has said it would be one of his first priorities to move forward in a legislative agenda. Chuck Schumer, as the Democratic leader, said the same thing in the Senate. The House has already acted on it. We are poised and ready, depending on the outcome of the election.
Mm-hmm. I know the Democratic Party has been vocal about their concerns in immigration, especially on provisions such as DACA. But on the issue of things like H2A Ag Labor, what is that party's pitch in terms of why their approach to immigration is going to be the better one for folks looking to, as you mentioned, work in those packing plants, pick the vegetables, et cetera?
I can't understand the argument that we don't need foreign workers for some of these things. It's obvious. We know the answer in America. In the Farm Belt, we see the answer right before us. If these people don't come in to provide a helping hand, farm operations are going to struggle and some are going to close down. That's what it boils down to. It is so obvious. There are just sectors of our economy where foreign labor, immigrant labor is absolutely essential. A friend of mine who owned a restaurant in Chicago, several restaurants, said to me, Durbin, if you close down illegal immigration working in the restaurants of Chicago, half of them would close. Behind that swinging door to the kitchen are an awful lot of undocumented people who make this business work. Well, the restaurants are flat on their back now because of COVID-19, and they want to get back to work. But those workers need to be part of that solution.
Mm-hmm. I want to wrap up talking about another issue that's been kind of a spotlight has been shown upon it, just kind of by a wide variety of things happening as a result of the coronavirus, and that's the issue of rural health care and some various things that need to be paid attention to in kind of the wide variety of, a lot of different issues. We've seen the loss of some of the elective surgeries really, have a detrimental impact on the budgets of some of these rural hospitals. So I guess my question is, what is the role of Congress in this conversation? As the issue of rural health, again, is not a new one, but given these fresh challenges, what can be done in terms of, making sure that these facilities are still open and available?
First things first, when you talk to the hospital administrators in rural and downstate areas of Illinois, they tell you they're hanging on by a thread. They literally may face closure Do you know how devastating that is to a community to lose its hospital? It's usually the best employer. And secondly, it provides that emergency care and regular care that are essential. And third, how do you keep or attract a business if you don't have a hospital nearby? This is essential for downstate and rural Illinois, and we need to have assistance from the federal government. The problem is not COVID-19 infections in most downstate areas, but the fact that people are holding back from going to the hospital for emergency room care, for elective surgery, for outpatient care. And many of those are money generators for the hospitals that are disappearing. The federal government needs to step in. The HEROES Act that passed the House of Representatives had $100 billion for our hospitals. We should have enacted it quickly, whether your hospital's in Illinois or Kentucky or Missouri or Indiana. The fact is the rural area hospitals are struggling to survive. We better pay close attention. And while we're in the business, we need telehealth. We need to extend the reach of professionals. I have a bill in with Marco Rubio, bipartisan bill, to increase the number of doctors, nurses, and dentists, particularly for areas of need like downstate and rural areas. So there are lots that we can do, and I hope we do it soon.
I'll wrap up. Just one more question for you. Asking this in the context of one of the Democratic leaders in the Senate. As you look at the agenda of things that need to be accomplished between now and the end of the calendar year, what do you think, some areas of bipartisan cooperation that are achievable? Especially again within that context of farm policy between now and the end of the year. What do you think farmers and ranchers can be looking for as things that Capitol Hill can, we've talked a lot about the challenges that they can't get done, but what can get done between now and the end of the year, you think?
Jerome Powell is the chairman of the Federal Reserve, and he has warned us over and over again that if we don't keep our foot on the accelerator when it comes to this economy, we could slump back into the recession or worse. I believe him. He's doing everything he can when it comes to interest rates and monetary policy. We have to do the same thing on fiscal policy. And that means putting money into the economy where it counts and where it works. And that's certainly first with the unemployed people, second with small businesses, third when it comes to the farm belt. We've got to make sure that there's a helping hand there to get them through this. I happen to agree with Chuck Grassley and John Thune on a bipartisan basis. We should target the small and medium-sized farms, not the large corporate operations that seem to be doing okay, but those that are struggling to survive need a helping hand. Can't tell you how many farmers have come to my office and told me their families are really worried as to whether they can make it with what they've been through. I want them to make it for another generation of farming.
So obviously a lot of things on the agenda for food and agriculture and for Capitol Hill here, not only this week, but this month and the rest of this year. And Senator Durbin, we appreciate you taking a little bit of time to join us.
Glad to be with you. Thanks.
For Senator Dick Durbin, I'm Spencer Chase. Have a good one.